Welcome. Today, we're diving deep into the core arguments of Whitney Webb's massive investigation, One Nation Under Blackmail. We're going to trace the book's central idea, that there's this hidden system of power, one built on a shocking alliance between intelligence agencies and organized crime, that's been shaping major world events for decades. And we're going to start with a really telling question from our modern political world. It's a quote that actually opens the book, and honestly, it frames this entire investigation. To really get why this question is so powerful, you have to understand the man he's talking about and the world he moved in. Easy, the book argues that figures like Roy Cohn and, yes, Jeffrey Epstein, they aren't just anomalies. They're not just random bad apples. They're actually products of a hidden system. A system of control, of dark money, and of blackmail that's been operating in the shadows for a very, very long time. Okay, let's get into it. So here's our roadmap. First, we're going to look at the unholy alliance at the very heart of this system. Then we'll trace its origins all the way back to World War II. After that, we'll see the shadow economy that actually funds the whole thing, look at the tools it uses to maintain control, and finally, see how it all comes together in a modern figure like Jeffrey Epstein. So the book's core thesis is this: a really sordid partnership was forged between U.S. intelligence and transnational organized crime. I mean, think about it. It was a partnership that benefited both sides, right? It allowed for untraceable money, for covert operations, and a kind of mutual protection from the law. But how on earth did something like this even start? Well, to understand how we got here, you really have to go back to the chaos of World War II, which is exactly where the modern American intelligence machine was born. This timeline here shows you the key moments it all came together. First, in 1941, you've got British intelligence basically lobbying for the U.S. to have its own spy agency. And boom, by 1942, the OSS is created. That's the precursor to the CIA. But then, this is where it gets really wild. At the end of the war, U.S. naval intelligence gets mob boss Lucky Luciano sprung from prison as a reward for his help. And right there, that's the moment a real, durable link is forged between American intelligence and a powerful global crime network. And out of this period, something new emerged. The book, citing author Gus Russo, calls it the supermob. Now, this wasn't just your typical street-level crime. No, this was a sophisticated fusion of criminal enterprise, political clout, and legitimate business. It was designed to blur the lines between all three. And Paul Helliwell is the perfect example of the kind of person who operated in this world. Here's a guy who was an OSS officer who then goes on to become a master of shadow finance. He's creating offshore banks and legal structures that served both the CIA and his organized crime clients. He was literally the perfect bridge between these two worlds. So the big question is, how does an alliance like this pay for everything and, cover its tracks? Well, it needs its own financial system, right? One that operates completely beyond the reach of regulators and law enforcement. The answer was to build an entire shadow economy. And that's what we're looking at here, the financial engine of this network. It's an offshore economy basically designed for secrecy, for untraceable transactions, and for laundering just massive amounts of illicit cash from crime, from espionage, and tax evasion. Castle Bank is like the perfect case study of this system in action. I mean, it was founded by Paul Helliwell, the same intelligence officer turned mob lawyer we just talked about. And just look at the client list. It tells you the whole story. You've got mob kingpin Meyer Lansky, the CIA, and wealthy elites all using the same bank. And the kicker, when the IRS and the Department of Justice started getting a little too close, the investigations were just mysteriously shut down, allegedly because of the bank's deep intelligence connections. The sheer scale of this shadow economy is just staggering. A 2012 report that the book cites estimated that the super rich were holding as much as $32 trillion in offshore havens. Trillion with a T. That's a vast ocean of dark money, all operating completely outside the global financial system. And we're not just talking about little island banks. No, huge global institutions like BCCI became hubs for all this dark money. BCCI was so corrupt, it was literally nicknamed the Bank of Crooks and Criminals International. I mean, it was moving money for dictators like Manuel Noriega and the CIA at the same time. And BNL, an Italian bank, was deeply tied into all of this, taking huge transfers from BCCI while also funding Saddam Hussein's Iraq. Okay, but here's a crucial point. Money is just one tool. To really have influence, this network needed an operational side. for logistics, for enforcement, and maybe most important of all, for controlling powerful people. So here, we're going to look at the actual tools this network used. We're talking about covert logistics through their own airlines, profiting from the global drug trade, and of course, the ultimate weapon of control, blackmail. CIA front companies, like the famous Air America, were the logistical backbone for all sorts of covert ops. And as the book details, they were also heavily implicated in the drug trade. Later on, a successor airline called Southern Air Transport, well, it relocated to an airfield in Ohio. And the book alleges that this move was helped along, in part, by Jeffrey Epstein, who was using it to handle cargo for his patron, Leslie Wexner. But maybe the most powerful tool of all was sexual blackmail. The playbook, used for decades, is chillingly simple and devastating. You lure powerful people into compromising situations, you document it, and then you use that material to control them. The book alleges this exact tactic was used on everyone from FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover to politicians caught in organized sex rings. And this brings us right back to Roy Cohn. The book really presents him as the ultimate operator of this system. He was the lawyer for the biggest mob bosses, a master of manipulating the media, a serious political power broker, and, allegedly, an expert in using blackmail to get what he wanted. He perfectly embodies this nexus of crime, intelligence, and politics. So you have all these different threads, right? The shadow banking, the intelligence fronts, the drug running, and the sexual blackmail. They don't just disappear into the past. According to the book, they all converge to create a modern version of the very same system. And this is where the book's second volume drops a bombshell. It argues that Jeffrey Epstein isn't some outlier. He's the culmination of this very system. He wasn't a self-made monster. He was a product of a network that had been in place for more than 50 years. Just look at how Epstein's career, as it's detailed in the book, mirrors all the key pillars of this network. He had deep ties to high finance. He had documented intelligence links, like having a mysterious foreign passport from the 80s. His patron, Leslie Wexner, had documented associations with organized crime figures. And of course, he ran a sophisticated sexual blackmail operation on an absolutely industrial scale. The really crucial point, according to this source, is his relationship with the billionaire Leslie Wexner. The book argues Wexner essentially handed Epstein the keys to the kingdom: incredible wealth, a massive New York mansion, a private 727, and access to a corporate infrastructure that even included those same CIA-linked airlines. This quote from a journalist cited in the book really reframes things. It paints Epstein not as the mastermind, but as a key manager, a fixer, inside a much larger pre-existing machine. He was the operator, the guy with the spook connections, but he wasn't necessarily the one at the very, very top. And that brings us right back to where we started, with a question. The book's ultimate takeaway is that the network that created and protected Jeffrey Epstein isn't just real, but it's much, much larger than one man. And it forces us to ask, if Epstein was just a manager, who else is out there? And what is the true scale of this network's influence today?